All right, let's take you back live to the Suntec Convention Centre to bring you the closing ceremony of the 33rd ASEAN Summit and related summits.
Welcome to the closing ceremony of the 33rd ASEAN Summit. We've had a busy but productive week of meetings. We've been focused on ASEAN community building and strengthening our linkages with key partners. When Singapore took on the ASEAN chairmanship, we chose the themes of resilience and innovation. They reflect our understanding of the challenges and opportunities ahead, and more importantly, the ASEAN spirit of staying united and looking forward. I'm happy that we have launched a number of concrete deliverables that will better prepare ASEAN for the future. I thank fellow ASEAN members and our external partners for your strong support in making our shared vision of a resilient and innovative ASEAN possible. To address security threats and forge a peaceful and rules-based regional order, we established the Resilience Response Recovery Framework to enhance counter-terrorism cooperation. We adopted the world's first multilateral air guidelines to manage unintentional encounters between military aircraft. ASEAN has also redoubled our economic integration efforts and demonstrated clearly our commitment to uphold a free, open, and rules-based multilateral order. Within ASEAN, we signed the ASEAN Agreement on E-commerce and introduced the ASEAN-wide self-certification scheme to facilitate cross-border online transactions. I'm pleased that the RCEP negotiations had made substantial progress. We are now in the final stages of negotiations. It's important to take full advantage of the positive momentum generated this year to conclude the RCEP negotiations in 2019. We are also bringing our cities and peoples closer together. This year, we launched the ASEAN Smart Cities Network. We've developed action plans for the 26 pilot cities to create innovative urban solutions that will bring tangible improvements to our people's lives. I'm happy that our external partners are equally committed to this cause and have worked with our cities on several mutually beneficial projects. We also launched the ASEAN Youth Fellowship and renewed the Singapore ASEAN Youth Fund. Events such as esports and music festivals help promote camaraderie among our youths. These are worthy investments because our youths hold the key to ASEAN's future. I have listed many deliverables, and these are just a small part of a much more substantial report card which ASEAN member states have achieved together for this chairmanship. You have a copy of it on your chairs. It's an easy-to-read infographic that compile the key initiatives we have launched this year. As I hand over the chairmanship, I would like to thank everyone for your support and hard work. Because of your collective commitment and efforts, we have taken considerable strides towards a more united, resilient, and innovative ASEAN. This is just the beginning of a new and exciting chapter for ASEAN. We are not and never will be done building and strengthening the ASEAN community. We must continue to uphold the ASEAN-centric frameworks and engage our partners to keep our region open and inclusive. We must stay on the course of economic integration and pool our talents and resources to improve our people's lives. And despite our individual national interests, we must continue to think regionally and invest political capital in the ASEAN project. Singapore has full confidence that Thailand, as the incoming ASEAN chair, will continue to take ASEAN forward. And we look forward to continue working with the rest of the ASEAN family to fulfill our common goal of one vision, one identity, one community. We wish our Thai friends the very best. Sawadee Ka.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We would now like to invite the incoming Chair of ASEAN, His Excellency General Prayut Chan-o-cha, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Thailand, to the stage. Your Excellency, please. Minister Lee will now hand over the ASEAN Chairmanship's gavel to His Excellency General Prayut Chan-o-cha. This formally symbolizes the handing over of the ASEAN Chairmanship to the Kingdom of Thailand. Thank you, Your Excellencies. Let us now invite His Excellency General Prayut Chan-o-cha to deliver his remarks. Your Excellency, please.
Mr. Chairman, Your Majesty, Excellencies, distinguished guests, I wish to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong and the Singaporean ASEAN Chairmanship team on their success in efficiently driving forward a resilient and innovative ASEAN community. Thailand will continue the good work on those issues to which ASEAN has given priority this past year, especially the ASEAN Smart Cities Network, for the purpose of ensuring continuity and sustainability for the ASEAN community. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, since the founding of ASEAN in Bangkok in 1967, over 5 decades ago, ASEAN has become a community in a region of peace and security. ASEAN has grown into the 6th largest economy in the world and is projected to become the world's 4th largest economy by 2030. Its role is recognized internationally and is at the center of the regional architecture. However, ASEAN is also facing a number of challenges, such as trade and political competition, disruptive technologies, transnational crime, inequities, and transformations in the region's social structure. For these reasons, all 10 countries must collaborate even more closely on the foundation of ASEAN unity and the principle of the 3 M's: mutual trust, mutual respect, and mutual benefit, to realize concrete deliverables and sustainability for ASEAN in all dimensions. I am therefore proud to announce Thailand's theme for the ASEAN Chairmanship next year, which is Advancing Partnership for Sustainability. This theme has 3 main components. First is advancing. ASEAN will look towards the future and move forward together dynamically, making use of technological advances from the 4th Industrial Revolution and enhancing our competitiveness. ASEAN will also build immunity to the negative effects of disruptive technologies and future challenges, especially for MSMEs, so as to advance towards a digital ASEAN. Second is partnership, both within ASEAN and with dialogue partners and the international community, by strengthening the concept of ASEAN Plus One and reinforcing the ASEAN-centered regional architecture, increasing economic cooperation with all countries, with due consideration to balance and benefits for the people, and enhancing the role of ASEAN on the international stage in addressing important global issues such as climate change. In strengthening ASEAN's various partnerships, one of the most important drivers is the promotion of connectivity in various dimensions, including infrastructure, rules and regulations, and people-to-people links, especially in the context of the ASEAN Year of Culture 2019. Equally important is connecting the various connectivity strategies within the region to becoming a seamless ASEAN. Third is sustainability in all dimensions, be it sustainable security, sustainable economic growth, which includes the green economy, and sustainable development. The establishment of the ASEAN Center for Sustainable Development Studies and Dialogue and the ASEAN Center for Active Aging and Innovation will play an important role in achieving this goal. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, in conclusion, I wish to invite all ASEAN member states, ASEAN citizens, and all sectors of society to cooperate closely in developing an ASEAN brand in order to create strategic value added for ASEAN, strengthen our ASEAN identity, and help ASEAN become a people-centered community that leaves no one behind and looks forward to the future, our future, with pride. Sawadee krap, and thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We now invite you to view a video presentation by the incoming ASEAN Chair, the Kingdom of Thailand.
In 1967, the Bangkok Declaration was signed in Thailand, marking the birth of ASEAN. Today, 10 Southeast Asian nations have become the sixth largest economy in the world, with 655 million people, peaceful and prosperous, with people at the heart of this community. Moving ASEAN forward to the next 50 years and beyond, ASEAN will join hands to prepare for unprecedented changes, regional and global challenges, by advancing partnership to fully connect our region and the world, together with our external partners. Create a seamless and one ASEAN in the era of the fourth industrial revolution. Benefit from the digital transformation. Utilize fully the global value chain. And enhance ASEAN's centrality in the regional architecture. For a sustainable future that is people-centered, inclusive and green. By reducing economic and social gaps, enhancing human security and investing in human capital, joining the ASEAN people together so that no one is left behind. Thailand is honored and fully prepared to assume the ASEAN Chairmanship in 2019. ASEAN welcomes you to the Kingdom of Thailand and a new chapter for ASEAN. ASEAN 2019, Advancing Partnership for Sustainability.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the closing ceremony. The ASEAN heads of state and heads of government will now take their leave. Kindly remain seated until they have left the room. Thank you.
All right, and with that, the 33rd ASEAN Summit has come to a close. Singapore Prime Minister Mr. Lee Hsien Loong has officially handed the ceremonial gavel to Thai Prime Minister Mr. Prayut Chan-o-cha. Thailand will officially assume the chair on January 1st, 2019, and the theme for next year is Advancing Partnership for a Sustainability. All right, let's bring in our correspondent, Leong Waikit, who is there at the ceremony. Waikit, could you summarize for us what were some of the key highlights of the closing ceremony?
Well, Gerard, the key highlight for me is that you and I, and perhaps our viewers who are watching us in the region, will soon live in a world that's highly secure, that we have technology helping us in our everyday lives, and when we shop for goods and services, we have them affordable. Now that is the future, but if you work backwards and come back to present day, if you come back to Suntec City, where the ASEAN Summit is being held here in Singapore, the deals and discussions made here would actually pave the way for the world that I was describing. We've got deals that were secured in terms of managing counter-terrorism efforts, in terms of managing air encounters among military planes. We've also signed deals to help businesses expand within Southeast Asia and the region in terms of e-commerce. We've also had solid plans coming out of these smart nation networks. Now, these are all examples of physical evidence that we can see. In the past few days, there are also intangible outcomes. You must have seen many pictures images of ASEAN leaders standing together, waving at the camera. You must have seen ASEAN leaders relaxing, having dinner together. You also have seen the spouses of ASEAN leaders communicating with each other, shaking hands, smiling, hugging and kissing. Now, all these are very small efforts, but it's important to form an ASEAN camaraderie, which is important when ASEAN gets together to discuss sometimes potentially challenging concerns.
And Waikit, Thailand officially, as you know, now becomes the chairman next year on January 1st. What do you think Bangkok will be focusing on?
Well, earlier you saw Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong ending his closing speech saying Sawadee Krap, and that got Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha chuckling, clapping, and it was on that very casual, very relaxed mode that you said the gavel was passed from Singapore to Thailand. But on a more serious note, there have been, the work is carved out for Thailand. They will be discussing various issues that were discussed here. So these topics in Singapore will be brought forward to Thailand when they take the chair, and these include boosting digital connectivity for people, making sure no one gets left behind. They will also talk about boosting the economy. Most importantly, Thailand will continue to push for the large trade pact that the region is looking forward to, the RCEP. They're pushing that to hopefully get some form of conclusion. However, there are also some concerns when Thailand takes over the ASEAN chair. If you recall, about 10 years ago when ASEAN Summit was held in Pattaya, it was during a time of political turmoil domestically. There were street protests that disrupted the ASEAN meetings. As we know, Thailand is set to hold their elections in February next year, and there have been concerns that that these developments may potentially disrupt the events. And one of the examples really that we have seen is how the ASEAN Summit was moved from the April slot to the June slot. But all things being said, the closing ceremony ended on a very positive note, with both the previous and the current chairs being very confident of their deliverables for the ASEAN summits.
All right, thanks, Waikit. That was Leong Waikit reporting to us live at the Suntec Convention Centre on the closing ceremony of the 33rd ASEAN Summit. Well, after days of meetings, talks and discussions, the 33rd ASEAN Summit has now finally ended. The closing ceremony took place just a while ago, and Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong delivered the closing remarks before handing the chairmanship's gavel over to his Thai counterpart, Prayut Chan-o-cha. Mr. Lee said the bloc's member states have achieved much this year under Singapore's chairmanship, but emphasized that there is still much work to do.
This is just the beginning of a new and exciting chapter for ASEAN. We are not and never will be done building and strengthening the ASEAN community. We must continue to uphold the ASEAN-centric frameworks and engage our partners to keep our region open and inclusive. We must stay on the course of economic integration and pool our talents and resources to improve our people's lives. And despite our individual national interests, we must continue to think regionally and invest political capital in the ASEAN project.
And Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha took the stage for the acceptance speech. He congratulated Singapore and said Thailand would continue on the good work done this year. Mr. Prayut also touched on regional challenges such as transnational crime and disruptive technologies. He said that in light of such headwinds, it's essential for all ASEAN nations to continue working together.
All 10 countries must collaborate even more closely on the foundation of ASEAN unity and the principle of the 3 M's: mutual trust, mutual respect, and mutual benefit, to realize concrete deliverables and sustainability for ASEAN in all dimensions.
Bangkok is expected to carry on the work Singapore has done this year as chairman, and the Republic has done quite a bit under its chairmanship. It has stepped up the grouping's battle against climate change. Early this year, it convened a special ministerial meeting for the very first time over the issue. Singapore has also been pushing for better online security amid a regional focus on the digital economy. It's funding a centre that's aimed at developing the cyber capabilities of all ASEAN member states. And just days earlier, ASEAN signed its very first e-commerce agreement aimed at facilitating regional cross-border e-commerce transactions. The city-state has also advanced negotiations for an ambitious free trade pact, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP. Discussions are set to conclude next year. If it becomes a reality, RCEP will be the world's largest free trade deal, encompassing nearly a third of global output. All right, we'll take another short break, but keep it right here on Channel News Asia. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence says the United States' commitment to Indo-Pacific region is steadfast and enduring. He says the U.S. seeks collaboration and not control, and it's proud to call ASEAN a strategic partner. Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong says ASEAN plus 3 nations, China, Japan and South Korea, will have to work closer than ever before because of the current unpredictable strategic landscape. It's a date. EU President Donald Tusk has confirmed the bloc will hold a special summit on November 25th to seal a hard-fought Brexit agreement with the UK. Well, after days of meeting, talks and discussions, the 33rd ASEAN Summit has finally ended. The closing ceremony took place just a while back. Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong delivered the closing remarks before handing the chairmanship's gavel over to his Thai counterpart, Prayut Chan-o-cha. Mr. Lee said the bloc's member states have achieved much this year under Singapore's chairmanship, but emphasized that there is still work to do.
This is just the beginning of a new and exciting chapter for ASEAN. We are not and never will be done building and strengthening the ASEAN community. We must continue to uphold the ASEAN-centric frameworks and engage our partners to keep our region open and inclusive. We must stay on the course of economic integration and pool our talents and resources to improve our people's lives. And despite our individual national interests, we must continue to think regionally and invest political capital in the ASEAN project.
Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha took to the stage after to deliver his acceptance speech. He congratulated Singapore and said Thailand would continue on the good work done this year. Mr. Prayut also touched on regional challenges such as transnational crime and disruptive technologies. He said that in light of such headwinds, it's essential for all ASEAN nations to continue working together.
All 10 countries must collaborate even more closely on the foundation of ASEAN unity and the principle of the 3 M's: mutual trust, mutual respect, and mutual benefit, to realize concrete deliverables and sustainability for ASEAN in all dimensions.
Bangkok is expected to carry on the work Singapore has done this year as chairman, and the Republic has done quite a bit under its chairmanship. It has stepped up the grouping's battle against climate change. Earlier this year, it convened a special ministerial meeting for the very first time over the issue. Singapore has also been pushing for better online security amid a regional focus on the digital economy. It's funding a centre that's aimed at developing the cyber capabilities of all ASEAN member states. And just days earlier, ASEAN signed its very first e-commerce agreement aimed at facilitating regional cross-border e-commerce transactions. The city-state has also advanced negotiations for an ambitious free trade pact, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP. Discussions are set to conclude next year. If it becomes a reality, RCEP will be the world's largest free trade deal, encompassing nearly a third of global output. All right, some news lines coming out from the UK now. British Prime Minister Theresa May suffered a huge blow on Thursday. Today, as Dominic Raab quit as her Brexit secretary, saying he must resign over the proposed EU withdrawal agreement. He says in his resignation letter that he cannot reconcile the terms of the proposed deal with the promises we made to the country in our manifesto. His resignation letter was published on Twitter. We'll bring you more of this breaking news when we get the latest details. All right, back here in Singapore, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong says the East Asian Summit has become an integral part of the open and inclusive ASEAN-centric regional architecture. He made that comment at the opening of the 13th East Asian Summit, or EAS. Speaking in front of leaders who represent more than half of the world's population and GDP, Mr. Lee stressed that deepening strategic trust is crucial for the EAS.
Your Majesty and Excellencies, thank you.
Trust building at all levels is critical for the East Asia Summit to function effectively and stay relevant. We had a good discussion at the lunch retreat just now, a format which Singapore has reintroduced this year. It's a good way for leaders to engage in frank and candid discussion on ways to deepen strategic trust among the 18 member countries. We also exchanged views on future directions for the East Asia Summit in response to the complex challenges we face today, so as to maintain regional peace, stability and prosperity.
Leaders of the 10 ASEAN member states met with leaders of China, Japan and South Korea for the ASEAN Plus 3 summit earlier today. The 3 East Asian countries are key economic and strategic partners to the bloc. Opening the meeting, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said ASEAN and the 3 nations have to work closer than ever before. Mr. Lee says it's because of the current unpredictable strategic landscape. He cited examples like the trade war, how major power rivalry is on the rise, and how the digital revolution has made all of us vulnerable to cyber attacks.
These developments call for the APT members to close ranks and to redouble our efforts to uphold multilateralism, because we must continue to maintain an open, rules-based and inclusive global trade environment.
During the dialogue, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang backed that call, while Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said he would strive for further cooperation on environmental protection and healthcare.
东盟和中日韩的合作机制发挥了重要作用， 可以说功不可没。当前又出现贸易保护主义抬头，我们需要来应对错综复杂的形势，来维护多边主義、自由貿易。
金融協力から始まった ASEAN プラス3は、今やその協力分野を食料安全保障、貧困撲滅、文化、観光、青少年交流等に拡大させています。日本は今後特に環境、防災、ヘルスケア分野に注力していきます。
South Korean President Moon Jae-in was absent from the summit as he was meeting with U.S. Vice President Mike Pence at the time. His foreign minister represented him at the gathering and thanked ASEAN for their support in resolving conflict on the Korean peninsula.
우리는 해법이 없었을 것 같았던 한반도 문제를 단합된 힘으로 풀어가면서 평화의 시대를 열고 있습니다. 공동체 발전을 위해 진정한 친구로 함께 해주신 동아시아인들과 동료 정상 여러분 덕분입니다.
Our correspondent Olivia Seong breaks it down for us.
It's pretty much the same message that we've been hearing over the last few days from Chinese Premier Li Keqiang about rallying support for free trade and multilateralism, given the fact that China is facing ongoing tensions with the United States over trade. The US and China are engaged in this trade war with billions of dollars worth of tariffs slapped on each other's economies. And of course, this has worried the rest of the world because there's also concern about whether this friction between the two superpowers is extending beyond trade. So with China here attending these meetings with the rest of the world leaders, especially the with its Asian neighbors, it's really looking to rally support to continue to uphold free trade and multilateralism. And what Premier Li Keqiang pointed out was somewhat similar to what the Singapore Prime Minister said. He did say that together ASEAN as well as Korea, Japan and China have together tackled the global financial crisis, and this ASEAN plus 3 mechanism has played a key role in this. He also did acknowledge that right now the world is facing rising protectionism, and all the more it is important to come together and respond to the situation and uphold multilateralism and free trade.
The United States has assured ASEAN of its commitment to the region. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence spoke with ASEAN leaders at the 6th ASEAN-U.S. Summit. In his opening address, Mr. Pence made repeated references to the Indo-Pacific. That's part of Washington's strategy that many see as a counter to China.
Like you, we seek an Indo-Pacific in which all nations, large and small, can prosper and thrive, secure in sovereignty, confident in our values, and growing stronger together. We all agree that empire and aggression have no place in the Indo-Pacific.
Mr. Pence represented U.S. President Donald Trump at the summit. The president's absence had sparked questions about America's commitment to the region. Mr. Pence said he looked forward to improving ties. He announced the new U.S.-ASEAN Smart Cities Partnership. Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong says ASEAN has much to offer.
We should explore ways to enhance our excellent relations, particularly where our interests are aligned. We will be adopting an ASEAN-US leader statement on cybersecurity cooperation today to strengthen our resilience and capabilities against cybercrime and cyber attacks. Our defense establishments will hold an ASEAN-US maritime exercise next year, and we hope to hear from Vice President Pence today how the US intends to engage ASEAN and further work together with ASEAN's vibrant economies.
We are going for a short break. Stay with us on our continuous special ASEAN coverage on Channel News Asia.
Every day, the financial world goes through dramatic rise and falls. As the opening bell signals the start of the business day in Asia, we'll track the biggest market movers and show you where the opportunities lie. And when trading ends, get the experts' take on the performance of key indices, plus all the analysis to help you understand forces driving global economies. The daily business news you need, only on Channel News Asia. This segment is brought to you by Xeon Corporation.
Our business news this hour, British Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab has resigned. Now, this move thrusts Prime Minister Theresa May's government into further turmoil after she had clinched a Brexit deal with the EU that was mauled by opponents, allies and mutinous members of her party. European Union leaders will meet on the 25th of November to endorse the divorce deal.
If nothing extraordinary happens, we will hold a European Council meeting in order to finalise and formalise the Brexit agreement. It will take place on Sunday, the 25th of November at 9:30 a.m.
Mr. Tusk's announcement comes a day after a draft withdrawal agreement was approved by the British Cabinet. British Prime Minister Theresa May will now set out the terms of the draft withdrawal agreement with the EU to the House of Commons, which must approve the deal before Brexit on the 29th of March. But it's likely to be a much more perilous struggle for Mrs May to get Parliament to actually approve this deal.
I firmly believe that the draft withdrawal agreement was the best that could be negotiated, and it was for the Cabinet to decide whether to move on in the talks. The choices before us were difficult, particularly in relation to the Northern Ireland backstop. But the collective decision of Cabinet was that the government should agree the draft withdrawal agreement and the outline political declaration. This is a decisive step which enables us to move on and finalise the deal in the days ahead.
And if there's any doubts about turmoil, you can see reflected in the plunging of the pound sterling, nearly 1% against the dollar after Mr. Raab resigned from his post this morning in the UK, of course. Mr. Raab, in a letter to the UK leader, said he could not reconcile with himself the terms of a proposed Brexit deal. A time for a quick check on Asia's major indices. Worries about Brexit and oil prices dampening sentiment today. Tokyo stocks closing lower, dragged down by the banking sector, while they're tracking their US counterparts, which dropped amidst regulation concerns. China's Shanghai Composite finishing higher amidst news that Washington and Beijing have resumed high-level trade talks. While that news has also helped to push Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index up. Tencent amongst the bigger winners, lifted by its earnings report, which beat estimates. And returning to the theme of China-US trade talks, now they have resumed high-level trade talks. Chinese Commerce Ministry spokesman Gao Feng confirmed that today. And this follows earlier reports that China has delivered a written response to the United States. Their demands for wide-ranging trade reforms, this move could trigger negotiations, bringing an end to trade tensions. US President Donald Trump is expected to meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping when G20 leaders gather in Argentina later this month. The US says it will not start negotiations on trade until it sees a concrete response from China to its demands. President Trump has repeatedly criticized Beijing over alleged intellectual property theft, as well as industrial subsidies.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. It's been 2 long days of meetings, 2.5. We've had fruitful discussions with our fellow ASEAN leaders, as well as ASEAN's key partners. We've had a busy year. As chairman of ASEAN this year, I've circulated an infographic which compiles all the key initiatives launched this last 1 year. And it includes a flagship ASEAN Smart Cities network, of course. Some of our colleagues have suggested that Singapore help shepherd the ASEAN Smart Cities network beyond 2018, and Singapore is happy to do so. We'll work closely with the next chairs towards enhancing the smart city projects and increase the number of participating cities. The various chairman statements, some of which have already been issued, most of which have already been issued, detail the key discussions and outcomes of this summit. You should have seen them. Let me highlight just a few points. On the RCEP, I'm very glad that substantial progress has been made in the negotiations. Now we are in the final stage of negotiations, and there's strong political commitment to conclude them in 2019. When concluded, the RCEP will be the largest trading bloc in the world, accounting for 45% of the world population, 40% of global trade, and 1/3 of global GDP. On the Korean Peninsula, we welcome the 3 inter-Korean summits held thus far, as well as the summit between the US and the DPRK in Singapore in June. And we express support for all efforts to secure the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. We also had a good exchange of views on the South China Sea. ASEAN welcomed the progress made on the implementation of practical measures under the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. This is the DOC. It has helped to build trust and prevent miscalculations on the ground. We look forward to the early conclusion of an effective COC. You will have noted the agreement among ASEAN member states and China on a single draft COC negotiating text. And also, we have agreed to complete the first reading of the single draft COC negotiating text by 2019. Negotiations are still in their early stages, and much work remains ahead. On Rakhine State, we note the recent announcement by Myanmar and Bangladesh to commence repatriation for the first batch of verified refugees by mid-November. Myanmar has also invited the ASEAN Coordinating Center for Humanitarian Assistance on Disaster Management, this is the AHA Center, to dispatch a needs assessment team to Rakhine State to facilitate the repatriation process. ASEAN is ready to play an active and positive role in the situation and will support efforts by all parties to work towards a comprehensive and durable solution. On regional cooperation and engagement, various concepts and formulations have been proposed for what is now starting to be called an Indo-Pacific region. Within ASEAN, we also discussed the initiative to develop ASEAN's collective cooperation in this region. And ASEAN has and will continue to study the various proposals closely. Any proposal should support ASEAN unity and centrality, articulate a coherent economic engagement strategy with our region, espouse a rules-based world order anchored upon international law, and also an open, transparent, and inclusive regional architecture. The proposals should also demonstrate concrete mutual benefits and complement ASEAN's own initiatives, for example, the Master Plan for ASEAN Connectivity 2025 and the ASEAN Smart Cities Network. So these are the criteria by which we will assess our response to initiatives under the various ideas which have variously been named Asia-Pacific frameworks. Overall, I'm pleased to note the progress. We were pleased to note the progress under Singapore's ASEAN chairmanship, and Singapore particularly appreciated greatly the support from fellow ASEAN leaders as well as our external partners. And we're looking forward to the next meeting in Bangkok, Thailand next year.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Now for the question and answer. Can I have the Straits Times representative, please? Please identify who you are. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Yasmin from the Straits Times. Prime Minister, by the time Singapore is ASEAN chair again in 2028, what kind of region
Where
do
are you?
hope
Sorry, I can't see you. Oh, okay. Yes.
By then? I'm here.
Yep.
So just to repeat myself, in a decade's time, when we are again ASEAN chairman, what kind of region do you hope we would have achieved by then? And if you could share with us some concrete examples of things you would have liked us to...
2028 will almost be 2030. 10 years is a long time, but the prospects, I think, overall are promising. Hopefully, ASEAN will be collectively the world's fourth largest economy by 2030. 2028 is not long before that. But there are challenges, because the free, open and rules-based multilateral order, which has underpinned ASEAN's growth and stability, is fraying. And big power competition is pulling ASEAN member states in different directions. And at the same time, we are also facing non-traditional transnational issues, such as digital technologies and climate change. And these require closer cooperation. So, if you ask me what I'd like to see, let me suggest 3 stretch targets. Firstly, to accelerate our current economic integration, comprehensively lower trade barriers, and increase intra-ASEAN trade significantly in view of the rapid growth of the middle classes in Southeast Asia. Also, we need urgently massive infrastructure investments in connectivity and productive capacity over the next 10 years in many of the ASEAN countries. And economic integration will help that happen. Secondly, to enhance ASEAN centrality and unity, because that will enable us to continue to engage in an open and inclusive rules-based system with all our major strategic and economic partners, and on the basis of win-win outcomes rather than zero-sum games and rival blocks. In other words, that over the next 10 years, ASEAN becomes more cohesive, more united. Therefore, you can be in a central position and play that role effectively. Therefore, you can engage your partners in a coherent way, and it's worth your partners' while to do business with you. Thirdly, we hope over the next 10 years we will be able to equip our peoples with the skills needed for new jobs in the digital economy and to weather and in fact take advantage of the digital revolution, so that we can ensure interoperability of digital systems within ASEAN. Because many countries are going to introduce these systems. It can be e-cash, it can be government systems, it can be data rules. And the more we can harmonize and bring them in line with one another, the more we can operate across boundaries and across borders and have a more integrated economy. And the digital economy is going to be a big thing. So these are broad goals. We've got an ASEAN leaders' vision for a resilient and innovative ASEAN, which was issued earlier this year, and it sets out in a lot more details the plans we have for the future.
Thank you, Pierre. think I should give our host broadcaster a chance. Somebody from MediaCorp was going to ask a question. Okay.
Good evening, PM Afifa from Channel News Asia. Given the greater rivalry between the major powers, how much of a concern is this for ASEAN moving forward? And how is this addressed at the various meetings with the different external partners?
Well, it's a reality. There are tensions between the powers, and ASEAN is friends with them, and ASEAN tries to be friends with all of them, and all of them, or many of them, are present in the room, because when you have the East Asia Summit, we have many of the major powers present, and we talk about these issues. So we have to understand where the sensitivities are, where we can cooperate, where different countries will have different positions, and it's not possible for us to go with one or with the other. I would say it depends very much on the issues. If we are talking about human resource development, it's not a sensitive matter. If you're talking about security issues, it's more complex. If you're talking about economic cooperation, well, theoretically that is win-win, but if the global economy pulls apart into different blocks, and then there are hindrances not just to trade, but also to investments, also to the rules, also to the technologies which are involved, then ASEAN will be put in a difficult position. So we will have to deal with this case by case. ASEAN by itself is not big enough to be a bloc. I mean, we have to work with the world as it is and try and maintain as much cohesion as we can amongst ourselves.
I believe there was a request from Zhao Bao.
Thank you. Hi, PM. Joining from Zhao Bao here. So you've highlighted 3 areas, namely the Korean Peninsula, South China Sea, and Rakhine Stage. So we would like to ask, for these 3 areas respectively, what is the progress made in terms of reconciling the differences in views, and what remains to be resolved? And secondly, what does ASEAN country think about the 3-year timeline raised by China for the COC negotiations?
Well, I don't think that this was a negotiating meeting. It was a meeting where we expressed our views and listened to one another. On the Korean Peninsula particularly, I think everybody in the meeting is on the same side. North Koreans were not present in the meeting, and everybody is hoping for stability and lessening of tensions and denuclearization. So I don't think that the hard issues were joined at this conference. In the case of South China Sea, I think the different countries' views are well known. What is being done is also known. We have the DOC, we are negotiating the COC, and we want to make progress on the COC. The Chinese have suggested we have got the single negotiating text for the COC. The Chinese have suggested doing a first reading next year. I think that we will do. The Chinese have also suggested settling it and negotiating it within the next 3 years. Well, that will depend, because it depends what issues come up, but I'm sure all the participants will exercise their best efforts in order to try and bring it to a conclusion. But I do not underestimate the complexity and the difficulty of the problems when you come to the substance of the COC. On Rakhine State, I think the State Councillor, Aung San Suu Kyi, expressed Myanmar's position. The other countries expressed their position too. There has been some developments over the last few weeks, because they are now talking about bringing back the first groups of verified refugees in mid-November, and in fact we are already mid-November, so that means within a few days. We hope it will be able to be brought about, but it's just the start of the process. And I think Myanmar understands the anxiety which other countries feel about this matter, and I believe that the State Councillor made an effective pitch expressing the complexity of the situation and how Myanmar is trying its best in order to make some progress.
Thank you. For foreign media, Dowei Media.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Dowei ASEAN from Hong Kong. This year marks the 14th anniversary of China's opening up and the reform policy, and Singapore has been playing a very important role and a kind of guiding role in the past. And China's Prime Prime Minister Li Keqiang, those 2 days had reinforced the message that China will continue to deepen its reform and further open up to the world. So, and this has been regarded as the second phase of China's opening up. So, how it will affect Singapore and the ASEAN countries, and what kind of suggestions or expectations do you have? Thank you.
Well, there's a bilateral aspect and there's the international angle. Bilaterally, of course, over the 40 years of reform and opening up, Singapore businesses have participated in China's development in a big way. Singapore as a country has also participated in a small way, in a modest way, in several G2G projects in Suzhou, in Tianjin, and now in Chongqing. So, of course, we hope for a continuation of this trend, in fact, an acceleration of this trend, because it will mean greater prosperity for China, which is good for China and for the world, and it will mean more opportunities for Singapore to do business in China and to participate in China's success. From the international point of view, I think this would also be a plus. I think it's very much what China's economic partners would like to see, because, as I've explained on several occasions, countries have benefited from China's growth and development. But over the years, the scale of China's impact on the world economy has increased enormously, because it's a very big trading country now. It's a major exporter. The economy has a big weight in the world economy. It's 15% of the world economy. And the impact is so large that the arrangements which were made when China was much smaller, for example, when it entered the WTO in the year 2001, are now harder to wear. Harder to wear politically and need to be updated. And the multilateral institutions also need to be updated to reflect the shifting balance in the world economy and the new forms in which economic exchange is taking place. So if China is going to open up further, as it has affirmed strongly that it will, Xi Jinping himself has said so at the highest level and more than once this year, and Premier Li Keqiang has repeated it here in this meeting emphatically. I think that is what countries would like to see, because you want to have economic cooperation, but also you want to have it in a way which reflects the current situation and which is politically tenable and acceptable in many countries. China's primary preoccupation when it's developing, I think, is domestic, because it sees 1,300 million people and the challenges in taking care of these huge population. But at the same time, because it is such a huge population, China's impact on the rest of the world is considerable, and I think increasingly it will become necessary for China to take into account its impact on the rest of the world, even while it is a developing country, as it now is, as in formulating its policies and in pacing out and structuring its reforms.
Thank you, PM. Xinhua Sir, was there a question?
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. This is Geng Xuepeng with Xinhua News Agency of China. My question is that what does the ASEAN-China Strategic Partnership Vision 2020 mean for the future development of the relations between ASEAN and China? And Mr. Prime Minister, I think you mentioned several times during the summits that the multilateralism is facing pressure now. So what kind of messages does the Vision 2030 between ASEAN and China tell the world as well as the region? Thank you.
Well, the strategic partnership, ASEAN-China Strategic Partnership Vision 2030, it sets out the future direction of ASEAN-China relations between now and 2030 is more than a decade. It reiterates the fundamental principles and shared values that have guided ASEAN-China relations since the establishment of this strategic partnership 15 years ago, including China's long-standing support for ASEAN centrality in the regional architecture. It also includes ways to pursue practical and mutually beneficial cooperation across the political, security, economic, and social cultural pillars. For example, it talks about the possible ASEAN-China FTA upgrade as well as cooperation in new areas like e-commerce, competition, and intellectual property. So basically, the signal is that China is maintaining a consistent direction. This is an extrapolation of the direction which has been successful for China and ASEAN, and we'd like to push it forward. And if you look at it in context, it is a direction which is compatible with China continuing to reform, continuing to open up, continuing to engage with the world, and on a basis which is win-win and which will help other countries to welcome China's continued growth and emergence as it takes its rightful place in the world.
Thank you, PM. PM, I have two more questions. May I take them together?
Yes.
If I can have, I think it's today, and then BT, if you can ask your questions. Then we'll end with that. Thank you.
Prime Minister Faris Mokhtar from Today.
Please wave.
Here.
Yes, right in front.
I have two questions. The first one is you spoke about how the major powers are trying to pull ASEAN into different directions. You have the US and China wanting to work on the ASEAN Smart Cities initiative. How can ASEAN ensure that it is not forced to take sides, and how important is it for ASEAN not to take sides? My second question is US Vice President Pence spoke recently about his country's enduring commitment to the Indo-Pacific region. But then observers have also pointed out, noted Mr. Trump's non-presence, which might indicate that otherwise. What is your assessment of the US commitment to the region? Thank you.
Well, it's easiest not to take sides when everybody else is on the same side. But if you are friends with two countries which are on different sides, then sometimes it is possible to get along with both. Sometimes it's more awkward if you try to get along with both. It depends on the issues. It depends on the state of the relationship between them. I think it's very desirable for us not to have to take sides, but the circumstances may come where ASEAN may have to choose one or the other. I hope it does not happen soon. On the Indo-Pacific and the importance of the Indo-Pacific, I think the US position is that they are fully engaged. They want to have influence. They are not at all withdrawing, and I believe that. They want to engage, but they want to engage in a different way, much more emphasis on what they call fair and reciprocal relationships, which is different from the previous approach in which the US engaged, and they provided regional and global public goods. In other words, they were generous. They opened their markets. They made investments. They provided regional security, and in the indirect benefits of a prospering region, the US prospered along. But now they say, no, that's not good enough. I want every deal to count. And that will mean a different kind of relationship, and we will have to get used to it if the US decides that this is the direction which they will go in the long term. As for attendance by the Vice President or the President, these things happen. Even with President Obama, there was one year when he was not able to come for the meeting, and he sent his Secretary of State, at that time was John Kerry. So I have no doubt that Mr. Pence conveys his President's intent and has conveyed accurately what his President said when he says the President wanted him to register that he is sending the Vice President to show how much emphasis he gives this region. So in the end, these are signals, but what is important is the substance and the overall relationship and the policies which are pursued and their cumulative effects over time.
Thank you. BT.
Maybe you have two questions.
Yes, I will ask them together. Thank you, PM.
That means four.
The first one is on the RCEP. Is Singapore a little bit disappointed that the negotiations were not concluded this year? Also because given that a few of the RCEP members will be going for elections next year, is there a sense that some of the momentum might be lost as we approach the finish line? The second question is on APEC. Many of the world leaders in Singapore are going to APEC this weekend. What is Singapore bringing to the discussions table this year? Especially on the issues of lowering barriers to trade and addressing concerns over protectionism and also the ongoing US-China trade war. Thank you.
Well, we would, of course, have been delighted if we could have settled the RCEP here. It would have been an extra little feather in our cap. But we understand political exigencies. We appreciate that a lot of progress has been made and that we are very close to the finish line. So I think what has been committed, that we will complete the negotiations next year, is a strong commitment, and I have reasonable confidence that it will happen. As for APEC, I'm going to be there, in fact going there tomorrow to attend the meeting. I hope the meeting will continue to send a strong message in support of an open and rules-based multilateral system. And I hope it will also press on with APEC's long-standing objectives of promoting free and open trade and investment in the Asia-Pacific region. So whatever happens in the wider world, in the Asia-Pacific region, to promote a free and open trade and investment environment. It's also important for APEC to seize the opportunities from the digital economy and establish or promote global trade rules to facilitate and support its growth. Because APEC involves many major economies in the region. It involves America, it involves China, it involves Russia. And so if amongst them they agree that they will work in a certain way, it has a significant signaling impact and influence on how things happen in the rest of the world, whether it's Europe, whether it's in the rest of Latin America, whether it's in Africa. And I hope that we will continue to have that effect, especially at this time when conditions are not quite so certain as before.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
As Prime Minister Lee takes his leave, ladies and gentlemen from the media, thank you so much for cooperating with our communications team over the last 3 days. You'll be pleased to know that the media lounge is still open until 11.
And that was Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong there giving a news conference following the closing of the 33rd ASEAN Summit. Mr. Lee highlighted some of the key areas under Singapore's chairmanship, from RCEP to Smart Cities Network and the South China Sea dispute. Let's bring in again our correspondent Leong Wai-Kit. Wai-Kit, can you summarize for us what Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong just said in his news conference?
Well, the most important summary is that Mr. Lee said that the talks held here at Suntec City during the ASEAN Summit have been fruitful. He talked about various outcomes. Mr. Lee talked about RCEP. He said that the RCEP negotiations are coming close to a conclusion, and that in 2019 they're hoping for some form of a conclusion to the RCEP, the large trade pact that the region is hoping to get with 6 trading partners. Mr. Lee also talked about collaborations in the Indo-Pacific region. Some of the key issues that let me repeat that. Mr. Lee also talked about collaborations in the Indo-Pacific region. He says that ASEAN will continue to study some of these collaborations, but they will have to be rules-based and also inclusive, open and transparent. Mr. Lee also talked about the Rakhine situation. He said that Myanmar State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi had expressed her views, and that the ASEAN humanitarian disaster arm would be helping facilitate the repatriation process from Bangladesh to Rakhine State. Mr. Lee also talked about South China Sea. He said that there was a good exchange of views on that topic. Let's take a listen to what Mr. Lee said. Right. Now, Mr. Lee said that there was good exchange on views of the South China Sea, and that he looked forward to the first reading of the Code of Conduct to be read in 2019.
All right, thank you so much, Wai-Kit. That was our correspondent Leong Wai-Kit reporting to us live from the Suntec Convention Centre here in Singapore, where the 33rd ASEAN Summit has just drawn to a close. But don't go away, because the news continues right here on Channel News Asia at the top of the hour.